Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain? Who could complain? I have normal morning complaints this morning. Kids didn't like breakfast, this and that, but just normal stuff, normal stuff. Who wouldn't? You should have seen the waffles I made this morning with delicious wild Quebec blueberries. I love I'm speaking French now. The cuvée récolte, the harvest. I like the harvest in Quebec in the summers. It is quite good. The thing about Quebec and Vermont, in fact, is that the farming was so not profitable that it never got industrialized like a lot of the other places were. So it never really changed. So those who survived are providing, and it's also one of the reasons why they were some of the first regions in North America to be able to go to the farm to table thing, because they don't really have the scale or capacity. It's the valleys, it's the mountains, it's the north, it's the short season, it's a bunch of stuff. It just meant that it was never being targeted by industrial food conglomerates and consolidators. So they kind of left it at the fringes, and that's how we've been able to have such good food. We love it. You can't even do wild blueberries, by the way. If you didn't know this, it's a completely different plant. There's the blueberry bush, which is slightly bigger, which is what most people get. It's the ones they grow out west. But we get wild blueberries here in Maine and Quebec. They're much smaller, but way more flavorful. And they grow in these little kind of plants that just come out of rocky areas and stuff. It's not a lot of places where you can grow them naturally. There's a place where I used to do hiking tours when I was a young man in the Green Mountains that are in Quebec. They spill over into Quebec. And on the peaks, there were just tons of these blueberries. You can go get them anytime. But around now, you'd have to be careful because the bears would just be like, eating them all. So you'd have to kind of watch out a little bit. Just black bears. They're foolish cowards. They'll run away anytime. All right. It looks like it's working here. There we go. It's Courtney's Fellowship of Oddballs. Good morning, Courtney. I'm getting in stuff from here on YouTube. Edwin, hope you're doing well. I got your note yesterday, Edwin. Thank you. P-Man, good morning, gang. Breakup gang, Moscow time, P-Man says. Indeed, indeed. David, hi, Nolan and fellow plebs. I hope you're doing well, David. Lance, Waltz is a blabbermouth, and he's in the pocket of the CCP. Yeah, I had to work with a few of my titles today because there were so many walls, like dad joke things happening, right? I was going to say the Great Walls of China because we are going to talk about the China stuff, but I'm going to downplay a bit of the China stuff. So that's why I didn't want to focus too much on that. I thought in the end we had to go with the Fiat system things. So that's why the walls are closing in, all these Trump. Remember the walls that were closing in on Trump for years, right? Jack Smith and Fanny and Letitia. Where are they now? Where are these people? The walls were supposed to be closing in, and now they pick walls. It's too good. Walls. So there you go. Walls. Yeah, balls to the walls. I had a few different Birdie Day. Because of the walls thing, there were a few potential titles, but I wanted to go with the walls are closing in. Jevy, good morning, friends. Indeed, Jevy, you got your home state is represented. Let's make America Minnesota. We're gonna get some Minnesotans in America. We're gonna remake America in the image of Minnesota. It's going to be great. Assalamu alaikum, Muslim Bitcoiner. Yeah, if you guys don't know, the Minnesotan accent is really just the Canadian accent. That's all that's happening there. They're just sort of they're slightly like, think of Minnesotans as like premium Canadians, right? They're just like premium Canadians. They're like a little more stuff. They got a baseball team and a football team and all that stuff, but they're more or less Canadians from that part of the world, right? Which means they're the dumbest people in the world. That's it. That's all you got to know. So we got one of them. And I could say it, and I think Jevy would agree. He would probably, I'm going to mind read Jevy for a second, but I'm pretty sure he would put his fellow Minnesotans in a gang with the Canadians as the dumbest people in the world. Tommy's in the house. Yeah. Harry Balls. Harrison Ball. Harry Balls. I've also got to point out that I'm wearing Tommy's Young Gucci's shirt here, the Satoshi House auctions, right? It's not just Shaw, it's the Satoshi House auctions. Minnesota. Yeah. Ukulele becomes Rumble Studio has to process recode. So about 3 to 5 minutes delay. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what takes me a bit of that time, you know? What the heck is a Minnesota? Minnesota is part of the Canadian Shield. So geographically, it's slightly different than everything else in the Midwest. It's not quite as good at farming, although there is a little bit there. But it's nothing like Wisconsin and Indiana and Indianapolis and Iowa, Illinois, and Iowa and Michigan. It's where the Canadian Shield. So the Canadian Shield is what you get in a bit in upstate New York and most of Ontario, and it spills over to the Great Plains, but it's the north shore of the lake, the north shore of the St. Lawrence River. And what it is the shittiest land on earth to farm. It's just rock. You're right on, there's no topsoil basically. And you got to pull stones out all the time if you want to farm it at all. And most of the land is kind of poisonous to certain types of agriculture because of all of the acidity from the pine trees and things like that. So very terrible area for farming, but very good for foraging. So you'll get a ton of those blueberries there. I mean, it's probably miles and miles and miles worth of. If you came into certain clearings in that area, you could probably have a whole field that's just blueberries. I mean, wild blueberries. You could just eat them all day. And then they got the fishing, there's lakes everywhere because it's all cut up by the glaciers from years ago. So, and then Minnesota is a part of that. It kind of swoops down into Minnesota. And so it's very different than the rest of its area, as you might have heard or have been told. The major difference between the reason why they're sort of premium Canadians is because the source people are a little different. The source people of Minnesota are almost all Swedish and Norwegian and Finnish and all those kinds of things. That's why they like hockey there too. And then the differences in that part of Canada, while the topography is the same, the climate's the same, it's the lakes, it's the hockey, it's all that stuff. Most of the source people are actually Ukrainian and Eastern European. So that's the major difference, but it's all very similar. You can go out and enjoy and have a conversation that's very similar. Whenever I watch that show Fargo, they just sound like Canadians, right? You know, that's why they have the Canadian accent. They go sledding, foraging and mining, lots of mining. Yeah, foraging and mining. Yeah, the foraging. Now, I've been making fun of it. It is actually a beautiful place, right? So Wisconsin hates Minnesota. Yeah, I'm sure they do. You got the football thing going on, I guess, the cheese and the stuff. And Minnesota Vikings have lost all 4 of their Super Bowls. Yeah, they're known to be losers. However, they won the most amazing World Series in the history of baseball. The 1991 World Series, won by the Minnesota Twins. An absolutely incredible. I was a kid at the time, and I'll never forget watching that. It was just the most amazing World Series you could have ever asked for. And to this day, I'll never, when everyone says that was a great World Series in baseball, I'm just like, I don't know. The Atlanta, they were both worst to first. They were both the worst teams in baseball the year before, and then they both made the World Series. They had just the most incredible 7-game series. The finals was 1-0 in extra innings, like just absolutely crazy. Kirby Puckett, everybody remembers Kirby Puckett. Yeah, Kirby Puckett, Game 6, extra innings. Because I was an Atlanta Braves fan that year, so it was sad for me when Kirby Puckett hit that homer. But it was something else, yeah. And they won in '87 too, yeah. A totally different team though. That was the Kent Herbeck and all those other guys back then. I think Paul Molitor might have been on the '87 team, but I don't know. Was he on the '91 team? I don't remember. Long time ago, and I loved it. And it was a lot of fun. Anyway, we're not here to talk about baseball, right? Who cares about sports ball? We don't care about sports ball. We're here because the sun is up and Bitcoin's running. The sunrise was beautiful today on the shores there of the St. Lawrence River, to which we were just discussing. So all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. You can see those little mountains back there. Those are an anomaly. Those are not the Canadian Shield Mountains like Whiteface in New York, or all those mountains that I just mentioned that go all the way to Minnesota, nor are they the Green Mountains, which you'll find south. This is a southern view that you're looking at here, southeastern view. You can on some days see my mountain of Jay Peak, so you can at sometimes see the Appalachian Mountains, but these are slight anomalies, not part of either of those mountain chains, and a little smaller. There you go. Fun fact, The builder of our family lake house had done remodel work for Kirby Puckett. Tirelessly, we ended up with Puckett's old toilet. Yeah, he died too. And his whole career after that was strange. He got pumped in the face with a baseball, like on the last day of a season, I remember, and his orbital bone broke, and he can never play again. And it was pretty weird stuff. Anyway, there you go. All right, let's get into some Moscow time. What's happening this morning in the fake news? This one's pretty good. Remember yesterday we were talking about, they called it code switching. Remember code switching? We were talking about code switching yesterday, which was okay according to Phil Bump, right? If you go with the hillbillies and you start talking hillbilly, or if you're in Minnesota and you start talking like a Minnesotan, that's the code switching. So it's a known thing. We were talking about it yesterday, and people know about it. But yesterday was no good. Okay, yesterday you couldn't criticize code switching because Kamala could be Indian or black or whatever she wants, and it's true, she can. Why not? Who cares, right? But this morning, the Washington Post letting us know that white liberals dumb themselves down when they speak to black people. A new study contends. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. I can't believe the Washington Post is admitting it, but that's okay. We got more. What's the weather like? What's going on with the weather? Where is it hot? We don't know. What we do know is that the Saharan dust, right, is going to ease, and apparently, according to Bloomberg, more intense Atlantic hurricanes coming as the Saharan dust eases, right? So Debbie slammed into Florida on Monday, the second hurricane to strike the U.S. this year. So everybody knows the Sahara dust does cause them, but here they're saying somehow that if the Sahara dust eases, we're going to get more. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Could be. We got more, though. These ones are really funny. Okay, ready? We got Bloomberg Green, right? So these are the threats today. Today we're getting threatened. Are you threatening me? Are you threatening me? Are you threatening? We're getting threatened. Here we go from Bloomberg Green. Unless massive amounts of green energy capacity is built in the world's poorest nations, they will become the biggest emitters of climate warming gases. So unless you're an imperialist, unless they're going to come move to your house. But it gets better. It's not just that unless you go and build everyone their wind farm in the world, or else they're going to use oil, right? We got the similar thread here. This is from the UK. Just stop oil, right? They're warning us today. They've been doing all these protests in Europe, right? They're the ones who throw the paint on paintings and gasoline on things, and they glue themselves to the street, right? These really healthy, mentally ill, these really mentally healthy people, right? We love them. Here's their new threat. Just Stop Oil claims climate change will lead to more Southport-style riots. Okay, so if you don't give them what they want, it's going to be a riot. And if you don't help all these countries without wind farms, they're going to burn oil. It's going to be your fault. Now, all of this said, right? If you don't do this, then we're going to have riots. If you don't do this, we're going to be emitting. What happens if you do all those things? Like in California, right? California they built the wind. They got all the stuff that they said they had to make. And then they did it. And they said, we're going to go green. And they said, you can't have these cars unless they have the green engine and not the gas engine, right? We know all about that stuff. But the Wall Street Journal today asks, without any irony or anything, they ask why Californians have some of the highest power bills in the U.S. Why? I can't figure it out. I've been sitting here trying to figure it out, and I just can't, right? Because I heard yesterday in New York, it was the wires that couldn't handle the heat, and that's why all the electricity was screwed up, right? So the wires. But now, right, you go to California, and they got the wires. They did all the wires. So what's the problem now, right? Well, the problem is, right, we don't know. We don't know. They can't figure it out. Wall Street Journal. What is going on in California? Why is the energy so expensive? It's a big mystery. We don't know. We'll never be able to figure it out. Oh, this is good too. So We got the threats, right? We got the threats. We got the big existential question: why why is the electricity so expensive? Whoops, I didn't want to put that yet. Why is the electricity so expensive, right? But we got other questions. It's not just about why it's so expensive. We got this one from down in the UK, right? So this one here, right? We've seen this before, but here it is. 500,000 acres of farmland lost to green schemes. I'm just bringing this up again. We talked about this 2 days ago, right? So they're getting rid of 500,000 acres of farmland, right? Because, energy prices, right? You gotta make sure. So they're gonna cut the food production over in the UK, right? But you think we're just gonna say go starve? No, we got a plan. You just have to go to another newspaper, right? So if you're reading that on Bloomberg Green, turn the page over to the Washington Post, and they got it figured out for us, guys. Don't worry about the farmland getting reused. Don't worry about farmland being turned into wind farms and solar farms. And don't worry about the food supply in the world, because, come on, how I fed my family for days with food that was bound for the trash. Come on, just go dumpster diving. Go into the garbage, get the food out, and yummy, yum, so much better. And then the bugs are free because you can get maggots. They got tons of protein. You get a bit of maggot in there. It could have been just like, but don't worry, you can make sure that the maggot came from a little older food and then just came into the new garbage food, right? So you don't want to eat the old garbage food. That might be poison. You got to just eat the stuff that day. We've been talking about this for a while. They have this is a thing in the Philippines, right? In the Philippines, there's restaurants that just go and they gather all the garbage from the restaurants that already serve. So you can get a really good, like, half-eaten chicken leg, and they stir it up with someone else's noodles. It's amazing. I think, it's going to come to America. It's going to be just the crowning achievement of America's green energy plans. It's going to be great. We're going to get this super expensive energy and a little bit of dumpster diving, and then we don't have to worry about Just Stop Oil with their threats anymore. They'll definitely leave us alone after that. They definitely won't do any more rioting. It'll be great. It'll be no problem, right? We're going to be awesome. Oh, now Tim Walz, right? So Tim Walz was the just named, if you didn't get the news, right? The Minnesota governor is now going to be the vice presidential candidate. So he's going to be the candidate, right? Maggots on a leftover bagel. Yummy for my tummy. We love the maggots, guys. Come on. We love the maggots. So what's the news saying about this guy, Tim Walz? What about Tim Walz? I never heard about this guy. So right away, first of all, I'm going to be doing a little bit of making fun of people's looks today. I don't normally do that, but I don't know what to say. They picked this guy. So you got to comment on his look a little bit, right? So I'll do that later. I'm not trying to be a jerk. So if you're fat and bald, don't take offense to this. Okay. It's just it's not directed at you. Lots of people are like that. I don't really normally single this out, but they made a choice here. So we just got to talk about the guy they chose, right? So that'll happen later. But what has the news been saying about him? Not the fat and bald stuff, just other stuff. What are they saying about him, right? Well, what do we know? We got Bloomberg bragging here how Tim Walz pushed Minnesota towards aggressive climate policies, right? And they say Kamala Harris's new VP running mate has made his home state a model of a quieter, Midwestern style strategy for accelerating emission-free energy. There you go. So that one's pretty good. What else do we got? Bloomberg Green. They got one here too, right? Oh, no, that's the one I already read. We got more. We got MSNBC. Tim Walz was named the most inspiring teacher. He was a teacher. Oh, he's so nice. And then MSNBC saying, because he contrasts with JD Vance, right? So MSNBC saying, this is the guy that Vance is pretending to be. He's pretending to be a 60-year-old fat teacher. That's what everyone wants to be. What are you talking about? JD Vance is out there saying, I'm not a crypto venture capitalist. I'm not one of the people that helped launch Rumble, right? I'm trying to be a teacher, a public school teacher. So good. Washington Post here says Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's low national profile and political record that includes nods to both conservative and liberal wings of his party is likely to fuel a fierce fight. Everyone's going to love this guy for sure. Here's what they say also in the Washington Post. Long before Gwen Walz's husband was tapped to join the Democratic presidential ticket, he shared a classroom with his future wife with a divider right down the middle, he says, right? So they shared everything. It was great. And then they do the thing with I guess there was a thing that went viral yesterday where I get something from a book that JD Vance, or it wasn't in the book, but it was somewhere else. He made a joke that he had intercourse with a couch once, right? So now everyone's making fun of this couch thing. And Tim Walz had a great joke last night. He went, if he can get up off the couch. So, not that great. He's doing his best, this Tim Walz guy, right? So, yeah, I think that's all we got on Tim Walz. So there you go. Tim Walz, they're going to do the gaslighting thing like they did with Kamala. Aren't you so excited? Aren't you so excited? Isn't he the best, right? But it's going to be a little harder because the reasons they always give with Kamala about why we should be excited is because she doesn't have a dick and she's got a vagina. And her skin under sunlight looks a little different than other people. So those were the good reasons to support her, right? That's what everyone's been telling us. I don't know what they're going to do with this guy because, he's, I'm not looking great, right? But they'll find their way, right? So they'll do their best. Anyway, it's great. It's real fun. So what do we know about this Tim guy, right? What do we know about this Tim guy? Well, he was a teacher. He looks like an idiot, right? I think that's what we've been able to find out. He's not really hasn't really achieved too much in his life, but that's fine. What he has achieved, people have been bringing this up for a while, is a lot of connection to China, right? Listen to this. Listen to his connections to China. So Morgan Ortegas reminds us here. Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's VP choice, has views towards the Chinese Communist Party that are way outside the mainstream consensus. Here's a detailed look at his relationship with Beijing over the years. So he taught a CCP-approved course in China during the Tiananmen Square massacre, so that would have been 89, 90. Despite the political turmoil, he later argued that U.S. classrooms should avoid depicting China as a scary threat and instead focus on its complexity. You know what? I'm actually going to say he's right about this. Okay, the China stuff, you're going to hear a lot of the China stuff in the next couple of days. I'm going to tell you all of it is probably bullshit, right? I just continue to not see China as the threat some people are trying to make it out to be. I just think China already controls its country. What possible win could China have from having a war with America? I think a lot of the times as Americans, we have this idea that everyone's like us. Like, let's be honest, Americans love war. We do. I don't know what to tell you, right? As much as I am a Bitcoiner, as much as I identify more as a Bitcoiner, instead of having a nationalistic idea or a nationalistic worldview, I'm definitely more anchored in the money part. I'm definitely more regionally focused. I'm a New Englander probably before I'm a full-on American, although I love the idea of America being a very loose confederation of worldviews where you can be a Bitcoiner and it can very easily be part of the American tapestry, let's say. So let's just be honest. I think it's a bit of projection when we think of China as this imperial force that wants to come here. They already control their land. Why do they need to come here? Why would they ever want to come here? There's no way it could ever work out for them. Now, the Taiwan thing, yeah, that's theirs. Like, we're not going to win that, right? They have some slight imperial interests. Hong Kong would have been one of them. Whatever else is going on in their area, I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with us. South Korea, I think we can keep. Japan, I think we can keep in the Western worldview and all that stuff. However, the rest of it is kind of theirs, right? And I could imagine they'd want to go around that part, but there you go. So the thing about the China connection, and you hear people are going to ramp it up, especially, and the reason I'm mentioning this is you're going to hear it a lot from the right wing, right? You're going to hear it a lot from the people who also love Bitcoin these days. You're probably going to hear it a lot from Trump or JD Vance or others, right? So you're going to hear some of the China stuff. I'm telling you, don't get too cranked up about it, right? Now, as much as I believe everything about TikTok and the manipulation of US politics, so I predict this guy's going to be a big hit on TikTok because they've had the fire brain button on TikTok for a while. And we should always speak openly about TikTok around here as it being a Chinese government asset, an asset of the Communist Party in China. Now, all of that said, the imperial thing where America is worried that China is going to take its place as an imperial power, I don't care, right? I just don't buy it. It doesn't fit my worldview. I could be totally wrong. But what I know about America is we like to start wars. I mean, something like, do you know how many countries America's been kicked out of just in the Joe Biden era? I think America has been booted from 16 different countries in the last 4 years. I think 16 different countries. I mean, the list is pretty big, right? It's all these places that keep telling America to get the fuck out of here. Do you think we're not involving ourselves in every one of these elections? Of course we are. Of course the deep state is, right? They're doing January 6th stuff all over the world. And the rest of the world is saying, get out of here. I think a bunch of places in Africa, the Middle East, it goes on and on, right? So there's places all around the world telling America to get lost. And I guess we've had more embassies shut down around the world where we're told we're persona non grata. That's one of the worst things that can happen in the diplomatic world. It's one of the big international law levers you can pull is to make diplomats persona non grata, not welcomed person. And I guess the Biden administration has broken their record for the most persona non grata instances in their history, right? I don't know. I think it's something like 16. I think it's like double the amount from the Obama years. So let's just be careful about, and even just go to Chinese foreign policy. Everyone says, oh, it's debt diplomacy. Well, they build actual infrastructure. It's probably a lot better than what America does, makes them buy weapons. At least the people get the train station and the port, right? And it's, some debt, I guess, but you get stuff built, right? So it's a little better. Anyway, let's keep going on what Tim Walz and his China thing is. Over more than a decade, Walz made nearly annual trips to China. He established a summer program for Minnesota high school students with funding support from Beijing authorities. In 1984, Walz and his wife chose China for their honeymoon. Walz downplayed U.S. concerns about China, labeling them as hyperbole. And I will say, too, that I don't know if this is true, okay? So I have no idea if this is true. And I'm not trying to be a lick-spittle, boot-licking CCP apologist at all, right? So just remember that if I could choose a government to remove from the world, CCP would be high on my list, all right? Very high on my list. We're going to talk about it in a second, just about how America and China, from the CCP point of view, and our government are basically the same anyway. So we're gonna make them look more similar rather than contrasted in a few minutes. But from what I understand, and I have not a lot of proof of this, right? Just a conceptual idea, but Tiananmen Square might have been not exactly what we think it is in the West. Not exactly, right? It might be in line with some of these things we've heard about with American meddling in foreign countries, because that's what we're going to talk about today, America meddling in the American psychology and in America itself. So it just kind of looks the same as what we've seen with the Chinese situation. So again, I have no idea, right, if the official Western record of Tiananmen Square is true or false. I used to believe it to be 100% true, and it was a crime against humanity and was the worst thing that ever happened in China, and we should all remember, and anyone who can't have a day of remembrance for Tiananmen is clearly a communist and all that. I don't believe any of that anymore. So now I would still have my mind open to it being the exact massacre that our Western media has explained it to be over the years. Maybe, but I'm not there anymore, right? I've left that camp. I don't even believe Tiananmen Square is like moves the needle in an argument for me anymore, right? Now, that's me. You have to sort of figure that out on your own. I don't really have proof to say you should listen to me and change your idea about Tiananmen Square. It's just my own conclusion that I've come up to over the years. So again, I'm going to say with Tim Walz here, his thing about China honestly could be sincere. Now, he could have been a deep state actor. That could have been exactly what's going on. But again, it doesn't sound like it because he's not out there trying to be like a pusher, right? He's not out there trying to say, oh, we got to arm up against the threat of China. That worries me more coming from an American than someone say, hey, let's downplay some of this stuff, right? So that's all good stuff, I think, right? Walz advocated for deeper economic engagement with Beijing despite ongoing human rights abuses. Come on. Like, are we going to still do this thing where it's like, oh, we're so great in America and we can't possibly even engage with the human rights abusers of China. What a stupid argument that's become, right? It's become a stupid argument because that would make us sound like we have some moral high ground. Do we not have as many political prisoners these days? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many political prisoners are out there in China. We got plenty in America, though. We have plenty in America. So I don't really see the contrast there either, right? So if he's asking for a solid, long-lasting partnership with China and dismissing adversarial views as overly simplistic, I think he's onto something, right? So again, you've got someone here. I'm trying to read someone trying to attack him for this, and you're going to hear more of this stuff. And I'm saying it's not quite on target, and you'll hear why in a minute. Despite his academic focus on genocide studies, Walz has praised communist China as amazing and insisted he was treated well during his time there. China has an ongoing genocide in Xinjiang, as declared by both Trump and Biden. Yeah, that could be true. I mean, again, I think Bukele said it a few years ago, right? Bukele said it when America and the justice system went after Trump. From the very beginning, Bukele said America can no longer lecture the rest of the world on democracy, on freedom of speech, and blah, 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 blah. I'd put that in the same thing. Are we doing genocide in America? Well, what's going on with the fentanyl? And I know China's involved in that, but if you're trying to tell me that America couldn't shut the fentanyl off to its country if it didn't want to, then you're living in a different worldview, and I can't really meet on the same level with you. Whatever is going on with the fentanyl and the border and the drugs in America has some complicit act of America and the system within it. There's no way this can happen. You can shut down drugs. You can't. You really can't. Unless we're getting some kind of protection in Mexico for American factories, or if there's some other reason why America continues to let its people be subjected to a type of genocide. And it is. I mean, you heard there was the interview that Tucker Carlson gave. Tucker Carlson got interviewed the other day. I don't know who was with, but it wasn't him interviewing someone. He was being interviewed. And he was talking about how he gave up alcohol in his 30s because he had become a functional alcoholic without even noticing. And that was one of the things he was talking about. He was trying to give context for the time in which this was happening. So this is 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago. He was 32, 33, he had 4 kids just born. He was smoking a lot of darts, a lot of cigarettes, drinking a lot of alcohol. He would wake up hungover, and that's what got him to start drinking in the morning. I'll be honest, the same thing happened to me. I drank a lot in my 20s, and I didn't do like him. I didn't start morning drinking to remedy the alcohol, but I used to have no problem getting drunk 2 or 3 nights a week to party with my friends. It's Thursday night, let's go, bang, 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 bang. But it was in my early 30s that my ability to bounce back from that stopped. And I quit alcohol as a result. I thought I was allergic to alcohol. I just started telling people I can't drink. And then slowly but surely being in events forced me to just stop drinking because I couldn't afford to be hungover the next day. Now, I'm not one of these people who's I don't go to AA. I'm not a recovering alcoholic. It was very easy for me to quit alcohol. I didn't even have to think about it. I just stopped, right? I'm lucky to not have that burden on me. And it didn't sound like Tucker had the same thing, but what he did mention was the drugs. And what he said happened with the drugs in that time when he was giving context was that, at the time, people who died of drug overdoses were just druggies, like people who had a huge problem. And I knew some people who died of drug overdoses in the 90s when I was a teenager. And one of my best friends overdosed from heroin in 1999. And indeed, these were people who were already on kind of a psycho-suicide mission with the drugs anyway. And there was a neighborhood here in Montreal when I lived here. If people told me they went to live there, it was so cheap and so drug infested. I said, oh, they're trying to die. Like, that's where you go to die. You wouldn't go live there if you want to live. You would go to die. And so there were places like that in the city. But what's happened now with the fentanyl and whatever's going on with this drug war thing in America is normal people are dying, like not even drug addicts, just like normal people. It happened in my hometown. I had my father's funeral in my village this weekend, and a lot of people came out. It was a great time. But 1 week earlier, another friend of mine from high school had overdosed at a party. So all of my friends were at that thing the weekend before, and they were there because there was the same trouble, right? More fentanyl death. These guys were just smoking like crack or something stupid like that, but it's mixed and it's laced. So I don't ever want to abdicate any responsibility for China on that, but I also don't want to erase American complicit responsibility in it. I don't know who these players are, But to me, to fill in the blanks to make this make sense, and that's all I'm doing is I'm hallucinating information to make the narrative make sense. I could be wrong, but I've hallucinated the information that shows that, to me, the only way this is possible is some form of complicit deal with American entities, the Pritzkers, whoever else. Something's going on in there, right? Something's going on with the mafia, with Chicago, with Arizona, and that's that's as much as I know, and I think it fills in the blanks for me. Again, I don't know the answers to all this stuff, so this is all hallucinations, fill in the blanks. Not everything we're talking about, right? But what we do know is that the China thing with this Walz guy, you're going to hear it a lot. What I'm saying is, don't bother with it, right? Don't bother with it, because there's more going on. And what our real enemy is, and you're going to see with the whiteboard and our theme today, the walls are closing in on the Fiat system. Here's what Ron Paul tweeted, right? 1913, the year that led to today's economic torture. He says, both the income tax and the Fed were created that year. And I've mentioned many times, they will die together. They were born together and they will die together. I've been saying that since the early Bitcoin days. The income tax made everyone's earnings the property of the government first. What the government allows people to keep is then relentlessly stolen by the Fed's inflation. Now, it's not even, when he says here, allowed everyone's earnings the property of the government first, the earnings themselves are government property. They're the words of the government. Fiat simply means government declaration. We've made money government declarations, which is why there's no feedback loop, which is why there's none of that stuff going on, right? So when you think of that, what Ron Paul said, this is Giacomo Zucco's sort of world order view, right? And this world order view is a contrast of the Bretton Woods system. So everything that's been set up since World War I and World War II, contrasted with Bitcoin. So these are the pillars, I would say. A lot of my infographics and my whiteboards do talk about the pillars that hold up a system. So a lot of these graphs sort of repeat themselves, but when you see them visualized in different ways, they become helpful for different reasons. And this is one of my favorites. So this is something Giacomo Zucco came up with 2 years ago. I think I first presented this board when I was still doing this breakup as a segment in the Bitcoin Magazine Live lead up to the 2022 show, because I can tell, because the background here is my porch in Barbados where I was doing the show back then. And you can even see some reflection here from the porch. So this is one I made 2 years ago. And you can see these pillars, right? So these are the things that make the system go round. These are the different, let's say, thrusts, the different, how would I explain this? The different mechanisms that allow for the psychological engine to perpetuate and turn around, right? So Bitcoin's psychological engine starts with revolutionaries. Engineers are a big part of it. Speculators are a big part of it too, right? Speculators are what we both have in common. And then where these things overlap, we see the disruptors and the cypherpunks and the Austrian school. That's especially where the psychological engine piece becomes really important, right? The Austrian school of economics doesn't argue that math is really at play within the numbers around economics. Even though we're dealing with numbers, we're not dealing with math. That's sort of a Keynesian way of looking at it. The Austrian school is all about the psychological engine that is perpetuated by confidence, trust in financial and commercial relationships, your ability to predict the outcome of a commercial relationship. And so it really is all about the psychology behind the system, right? Versus the Bretton Woods system, which is just print, and we'll deal with it later, the modern monetary theory. It's all just, our words are so valuable. They're so, the confluence of all of our bureaucrats is so valuable that of course we can do what we want, right? So that whole thing. But again, seeing this system through nation lenses, through national points of view first, I think is a problem, right? Because these are sort of incumbent institutions. They don't want to see the world change because everything they have, all of this power was built on the coordination of these things. But let's just see how broken it is, right? Let's just see with Walz coming in and what that means. Look at Walz, first of all. They're going to try and gaslight in the same way they did with Kamala. He's so great. He's wonderful. He's the best we've ever seen, right? But with Kamala, because they're already of the opinion that it's like black and woman gives you bonus points, this guy's not getting any bonus points, right? So the sales and marketing job already is a little touchier, right? It's not quite as easy as it once was. And so you've got to get this Waltz, an ugly, super weird, he's apparently the guy that came up with weird. Isn't that funny? Isn't that a bit of projection? Doesn't he just come across as weird? Every one of his physical mannerisms. Have you seen his stupid face yet? I'm not going to be able to take much of this guy, by the way. He's already annoying me to the level that I've got to tune him out. I'm going to have to block him. And I'm just, Kamala's annoying enough. This guy's in a world where I want to punch him in the face, right? Just from him talking with his dumb mouth. So I'm going to have to forget a lot of this guy. You're not going to hear much about him on this show from now on. That's probably the one and only time, unless he does something really funny and stupid. Then I'll bring him up again. But the idea here that you've got to now get the Washington Post, MSNBC, and they're very powerful. They can brainwash. They have the hypnotizing abilities. They've made Kamala seem cool. But now they got to do it to this ugly, stupid, dumb, slack-jawed moron who's ugly. Sorry. I hate to say it. I don't want to be that guy. I wish I didn't live in a world where looks mattered this much. But he is an ugly son of a bitch. He is. And it's going to be difficult to sell. Sorry. No one wants to work for a guy that ugly. And he's only 60. He looks as old as Trump. I mean, 60 years old. Tom Cruise is 60 years old. Now, I'm not trying to put everyone on the Tom Cruise level, right? But Tom Cruise, who will host the space drops, does not come across as 60. Not even close, right? This guy comes across as older. He's older. So good luck for that. And again, I'm not the guy who's going to normally tell you looks matter to this extent, right? We don't do that kind of thing here. I want this show to be, and I want us meeting together to be sort of looks not important, because it isn't. We're just here to have coffee and talk about the news and all that stuff. But in this case, in this weird, exceptional case, you got to kind of mention it because it is important. He's so stupid looking that you got to mention it, right? So there you go. Again, this is not normally where I would go with this, right? Just the looks matter, but they do. In this case, they do. So, but remember who these things contrast with. So you've got to get, in the same way you've got to get like Janet Yellen and the Washington Post and MSNBC. They got to go and do all their best to make this stuff make sense to Americans. But now, just like Janet Yellen is so also dumb looking, and she's just like, you don't even want to look at her. She's so stupid with her stupid face and everything. So now you got to get the media to work overtime to push these people. Can they do it? Well, the good news is, right? The good news is we have some signs that it's not going to work at all. Not even close. So the signs are already we've seen, or no, back to that. That's the Elon Musk stuff. So already you've got Elon Musk, right? Who is an engineer. And it's one of these weird crossovers where he's also the best marketing person in the world. Now, I've told you that many times, right? Elon Musk is not trained as an engineer. He's not. He's trained as nothing, I guess. He didn't really go to much school. I think he did a bit of physics or something like that, but he's totally not a engineer. So he's a marketer. But of course, his brain already has the engineering modalities to it. It thinks like an engineer. He uses his intellect the same way an engineer might to solve problems. He solves those problems with sales and marketing techniques, but he's the overlap here. He's the reason why this is starting to flip this way. It's one of the huge losses that this pillar of their system, the sales and marketing thing, is being lost to the best sales and marketer in the world who also happens to be an engineer. Now, what gets even more fun is that X, the platform he's bought, he's going to have Trump on this weekend. So on Monday, Trump and Elon are going to go on the internet Monday. By the way, just so you know, we were very close at Bitcoin Magazine to making that happen at the Bitcoin show a week ago. Very close. It fell apart at the last minute, but Elon was flying to us and supposedly to come on stage. His security team had gone through the venue many times. They were coordinating directly. The Trump team and the Musk team were coordinating directly outside of our view. They couldn't come to an agreement on how to do the show together in Nashville. And that's the only reason why it fell apart. As I understand, they continue to talk about it, and that's what we're going to see Monday. So you're going to see them talk about Bitcoin on Monday. That's going to happen. Now, what you're getting with that is this ability to turn the psychological engine on the Bitcoin side is going to fire up even stronger, because you've actually got the two best sales and marketing people on planet Earth, much better than Tim Walz. They're going to be talking about engineering stuff, right? They're going to be talking about the network. They're going to be talking about all that stuff. So it's very important that these two people are coming together. Trump will be back on Twitter that day, and it's huge news, right? It's just absolutely huge news. And that's the reason why when you see them working together that way, you're going to get this potentially big night, right? And another reason why let me show you what Vivek said about Tim. So Vivek goes, he reminds me of Tim Kaine. I don't know where I put it here. Anyway, I thought I had it. He says he reminds me of Tim Kaine. Don't remember who that is. It doesn't matter. He was a loser too. Something along those lines. Anyway, it was funny. So again, this guy doesn't look like he's going to be able to carry water that well. Now, where is it? No, I guess I didn't get it. Yeah. So it's funny too. Scott Adams says, I'm watching a pundit on CNN say the choice of Walz for VP running mate will help with the white male voter demographic. And he says, LOL, no. Whatever the reason, it was the first big decision for Harris, and it looks like a huge mistake. So this guy, I mean, he might be funny. We might be bringing him up because he's so stupid and hilarious. So that could be what we get to see. So everyone in the crowd thought, we did too. Honestly, I did too. And I was close to it, Seaberger. I was as close as you could be to the situation. And we also thought he was coming. So, and they really, I mean, they kind of were, right? So there you go. So very interesting. Now, let's go back to the engineering part and what's going on over there, and just look at what has to happen for these guys to get it right versus the engineers. Now, the benefit we have is people like Mike Benz, right? We've been talking about Mike Benz for well over a year now. Mike Benz has changed the world in a lot of ways. It was great to meet him in Nashville. I'm so glad he came to speak at the event. Now, Mike Benz mentions the following, because what's gone on in the past few days is really fun when it comes to just this engineering versus sales and marketing piece, right? So the other day, Elon Musk came out and pushed back against the online advertising boycotts that are going on his website. People boycotting Twitter. Now, part of it started because Elon Musk said the engineering take on what's going on in England with immigration. So what he said, what Elon Musk said is civil war is inevitable, that it's bound to be a type of civil war with all these riots going on and everything like that. Now, that's an engineering prediction, right? It's a system design prediction. It is him saying, with the system as it is, civil war is inevitable. Now, I believe England's already lost. I think Europe is, whatever it's going to be, it'll be different than it was. And I'm optimistic it'll be okay, but it's not something that you've got to go and fight for unless they're willing to do it themselves, right? That's up to them. It doesn't look like they have much of an appetite, or at least the people who are doing it now, or it's too late, right? It looks a little too late. And so I think you're going to see a huge migration over to America of the people there, and just rich people in general. I think something like 2,000, some thousands of millionaires, I guess you could say. I saw a data point today. Thousands of millionaires have left England already since 2017. I don't think that's going to stop. It's the same in France. I've seen that firsthand in France. I've seen the demographic shift in France myself. I was a student there over 20 years ago, and the boomers and everyone were still out at the bars. They were still out filling the restaurants and the patios and the cafes. They're all gone now. None of that's around. It's all finished. These places are empty, mostly empty. I lived in Japan at the very end of the boomer life cycle as well, where they were still partying. Same thing. I noticed they're all gone. When I went back in 2019, all of these people, and I've been back many times since, but it really hit me in 2019 just to watch going out in a very popular area, and it felt like Deadsville, and it was a place you couldn't even stand straight in the old days in Osaka. It was just so packed. So that's, people are leaving these places, right? And Japan's a different case, but that's what's going on. So just think about it. We've got the engineering platform. We've got the engineer who's also a marketer talking on the platform. We're going to have a huge day Monday. But not only that, you've got this whole movement now where they're trying to stop him from doing this stuff, right? That's the boycott thing. Now, you get this guy, his name is David Clark, right? He comes out and says, Elon Musk is using this platform to destabilize the UK with lies, right? This is him predicting that it's just like an engineer. It's not an opinion. It's the system design thing. If it's built this way, it's going to crash. That's what it looks like, right? And so he's there. His response to maybe long overdue regulation of social media, David Clark says, right? But here's what we've got. We've got people like Mike Benz who will come out and say, everyone's fixated on the fact that this call to ban Elon from owning X is coming from a guy who has ethical socialist in his bio, right? What you should be fixated on is that he comes from the Foreign Office, UK's version of the State Department, with a specific focus on Eurasia. So, and then he goes, I taught you well, my young Padawans, he says at the last line here. That's Mike Benz. So basically now, if you know who the people are, if you know who the players are, if you hear that it's, what's her name from Jenkowitz, right? Or if it's the State Department, or if it's any of these cutouts, if it's Media Matters, if it's any of these people, you know what's going on. You don't have to even listen to their opinion. And David Clark is one of these deep state type actors. So now we see that all these people are trying to do it. Elon Musk is running into trouble by making outrageous statements and amplifying misinformation, right? But everyone is starting to figure this out. We're seeing just how close these NGOs are, right? The NGOs that do all of these hit pieces, Media Matters. We're seeing now through Mike Benz's work that Antifa is the same entity. That's why they never get in trouble for what they do. He says here, it never ceases to amaze me how deeply connected Antifa networks are to straight up CIA shit. So this is Philip Proudfoot, who's out there saying politics, labor, accountability, and humanitarianism in the Arab states, Britain and elsewhere, right? Green Party. And then he says right here, right, we got to get the Brighton anti-fascists, time to mobilize and outnumber. So a guy just straight up saying, let's go Antifa, right? And he goes, it came out in Timber Sycamore, the largest publicly disclosed CIA operation of all time, that the CIA was training and funding Syrian migrants and workers to capably build their anti-government desire to topple Assad. The CIA backed Syrian Antifa groups. So when Antifa Prof in UK organizes Arab international students in a local uni democracy training program and then sicks them on the right-wing popular street protest, right? Which is exactly what you see. And he says, I mean, just look at these 4 screenshots in a row and tell me if this is not the same as the CIA training Ukrainian Azov battalion refugees at a Florida International University Democracy Center, and then a professor handler deploying that paramilitary muscle against local leftists. So that's what's going on here, right? So we've seen these things all around, but that's what makes this lawsuit so interesting. You've got Elon Musk, who now is encouraging everyone to go after these platform people, to go after the marketing around it, to let the engineers win. Basically, this all turns into a Bitcoin decentralized argument sooner or later, right? And I'll explain that when we get to the speculators piece. So sooner or later, you start understanding that the decentralized nature of the network, the engineering to the network, is much more important than just what people are saying, right? And people are starting to come to that conclusion, and it's becoming more and more obvious, right? So you've got Linda yesterday talking about the advertising boycott and how it is an existential threat to our ability to speak online. You've got Ava Gardner-Brooks saying who was a speaker at Bitcoin Amsterdam last year. Got to meet her. She's newly married this summer. So all you fellas out there, you're out of luck. You're out of luck. Who can really see and hear you can really see the righteous anger in Linda's eyes and voice as she addresses the illegal and systematic boycotting of advertisers against X. She knows what's at stake. She sees the bigger picture and is ready to fight for our right to express ourselves freely. Elon, for his part, got Rumble to join in his lawsuit against Media Matters and all these folks who are trying to advertise these boycott things. So who's going to win this fight? Elon's already won, right? Like it's just easy. These people are too stupid. So that's why this thing is going to be so big, right? That's why this Trump thing is going to be such a big deal. Now, let's go to the speculators and why this is important, right? So yesterday we had our favorite, Nassim Taleb. Taleb. So again, we've compared the engineers / marketers that are going to help perpetuate the Bitcoin psychological engine. The revolutionaries, of course, are much more important than the lick-spittle, bootlicking Waltzes of the world and anyone else who's out there trying to perpetuate a worldview that would put some government at the middle of it, right? I don't even think Trump can't even do that anymore. Trump, as much as he says America first, it's going to become Americans first. The country and the institutions, he's going to have to destroy them. They tried to kill him, right? The institutions, not the people. The institutions tried to kill him. So he's only got one institution that didn't try to kill him, and that's the Supreme Court. All the rest of them tried to kill him. So the entire concept of national institutions and all that is going to be completely remade if he gets back in power. And it will look a lot more like this revolutionary piece, right? So those guys are going to take over. But let's go to the speculators now, right? Let's go to the speculators. It's a big part of it, right? It's a big part of what's going on. It's a big part of what's happening with the engineers versus the sales and marketing people. It's essentially that. The speculators are the ones who are going to determine who wins this fight, right? They're the ones who are going to determine who wins this fight. And so who are the speculators they have, right? Who's left? Saying Janet Yellen and Tim Walz, you're great. And Kamala, you're so great. I love you. I'm so happy a black woman without a dick is going to be the president, right? She didn't even have to cut her balls off to be a dick. She's just a natural woman, right? So what's going on? Well, the speculation piece starts to show what's different, right? When you're left with people who talk like this, you had Nassim Taleb trying to get philosophical and trying to talk about economics and what people should do. And he tried to explain he tried to use the lines he used a few years ago. And Joe Kernan said to him, right? You're losing your ass after telling me Bitcoin was useless at $30,000. And he, with the smile and everything, he tries to come back, right? But his brain is broken. He's useless. He's not going to change anything. And so if you go back and consider, again, what's going on with our order of the world and our psychological engine and what's perpetuating where, it's pretty obvious that this system simply is out of gas. It's not going to be able to go forward. Janet Yellen and Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, right? You're going to see the fake news machine flex all of its muscles. They're going to do everything they can, but it's a limp dick. It's over. They can't. It just doesn't work anymore. There is no Viagra for it. There's nothing coming to help them. They cannot do it anymore. They don't have the power. They don't have the muscle. It's over. Now, they might win by cheating. It's true. It might happen. They might cheat again. But our capacity, because the speculators and the engineers and everyone involved now is so much smarter than we were in 2020. Just look at it. You're not going to be able to run a fake FTX prediction market to lie about who won the election this time around. That's what they did last time. It won't work this time. The poly market and the decentralized nature of all this stuff has taken over, right? So there's just no way this stuff's going to work. So there you go. That's what we got today. That's the show. Let me get some of these things here. Veterans, cannabis. Well, I'll go up on the list here. See you later, Crypto Truth. Hope the gang has a great day. Thanks for all you do, Nolan. We know you don't have to do this, but we need it. Yeah, man. Joe Biden number 2. He has the charisma of a bald snail. Yeah, it's not working. Bad bitch Yellen. We love the old bad bitch Yellen. Looks matter. Smell matters more. It's true. It's true. Everyone in crowd thought, yeah, that's the, I think it will be Lex Friedman, Sluggo says. It could be. It could be. Me thinking China really bad. Meanwhile, Nassau County. Yeah, this is what I mean, Muslim Bitcoiner, right? You know, we're sitting around China. Nassau County bans wearing face masks to hide identity. Makes it a misdemeanor punishable up to a year in jail and $1,000 fine. Exactly. Yeah, one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. Yeah. I mean, that's that's how they think out there in Minnesota with all of those Swedes. That's a Swedish thing to say. Waltz is a sacrificial punching bag white guy who's going to wear leather and get on all fours for Kamala to sit on like a throne. Yikes. You might be right, Tommy. I give it 6 weeks before we see it. Ay, ay, ay. You might be right. Europe is Sharia toast. France will be majority Muslim by 2035. Germany, well, if everything goes as it is, yes, but nothing goes as it is. Things will change. I still think there'll be some kind of better Europe. Better. Right? They got to wake up. Bitcoin will heal the world from the inside out, sure will, Dale. Waltz's lovely daughter Hope was texting our National Guard, allowing. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, during George Floyd. Yeah. Overslept, Bitcoin Deb. Gonna have to rewind. Was listening to the guy on Marty Bent's show last night and couldn't sleep after that. I didn't see who was on Marty's show yesterday. Please give out the link to where it can be found. Thanks. I looked for pinned yesterday's post, was not able to find. Sure, veterans. Wow, excellent metaphors, Seaberger. The last waltz. Dang, you got it. No. I was looking for that. I'll have to copy that. The last waltz. You cannot invade the mainland. There will be a rifle behind every blade of grass. Yeah, exactly, T-Dog. Yeah, that's what I mean. Anyone who's out there going to try and tell you China's coming to get us, it's not true. Like, they got their own problems, man. All they want is a place to dump the dollar store goods they make. Or if they go higher end, dump their cars. We can handle that. I mean, it's just not as natural an enemy as people want it to be. Jenna Yellen's like Creature from Dark Crystal to me. She does, yeah. Or Planet of the Apes. She's got a Planet of the Apes face a bit too. I am bald and I am on a mission to explore a strange new box, to seek out new life and to stack sats, to boldly go where no NPC has gone before. Thanks, Defina. Yeah, again, I'm not trying to be a jerk here about the looks. So don't, I hope everyone was able to get through that. They will not think for yourself, man, have a Bitcoiner up there. But I think that Elon telling Trump that putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet can make the debt go away in the same way it controls and helps manage risks on the Tesla and SpaceX balance sheet will be all the cover fire Trump needs to keep up with his good idea. So there you go. Last Fiat DNC waltz. Yeah, last DNC waltz. The last waltz. You got me. That was better than mine. I like mine, right? Walls closing in. But there were so many options, so I had to make a choice. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I hope you all have a great day, and I shall see you all tomorrow. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace.